Welcome back to Her Drive, the podcast where we spotlight bold women navigating unmarked roads with heart, grit, and purpose. I'm your host, Cynthia Cramblett, and today's guest is a radiant embodiment of reinvention, resilience, and financial empowerment. Joining me is Sun Yong Kim Manzolini, the powerhouse CEO of Lush Enterprises LLC, who went from having no money in her bank account post-retirement to multiplying her income by 6 times in just 1 year, all through what she now calls her unique miracle system for options trading. But her story doesn't begin there. Born in Korea and raised in an orphanage, Sun Yong's journey is one of rising above unimaginable odds, rewriting the narrative of what's possible, and now teaching others how to claim their time, power, and financial freedom through savvy, heart-led investing. So without further ado, hello, Sun Yong. Welcome to Her Drive.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be on your podcast. It's just, I love the name of the podcast name because it just gives such a strong vibe.
Yeah, thank you for feeling into that. When I chose the name of the podcast years ago, I really wanted it to have forward moving momentum. And when you think about drive, there's 2 words for me that come to mind, or 2 meanings, like driving a car forward, right? That forward momentum. And then also just the idea of what's pushing us, what's motivating us forward. And I'm really excited to dive into your journey and what has been, your motivator for this significant shift in your life.
Sure. Well, I'll just start from when very at the beginning, when I first realized what money means. I realized when my mother passed away quickly when I was very young, and my dad kind of, left us, me and my sister. And right at the moment, I realized like, what is going on with my dad? Does he not have enough money, or what's his problem? Why is he leaving us? So, and I realized like, what kind of job would people have to have, or how much money do they have to make to take care of the family? And so that was instilled in my mind. But then I kind of pushed that to the side and left it on the back of my back burner, and just living my life orphanage with my sister. And of course, I felt very, unwanted, abandoned, and not trusting, anybody, especially, my birth family, my birth dad, and so forth. But it doesn't stop there. Just as I felt so comfortable living with my sister in an orphanage where we were, we, promised each other that we're going to take care of each other, and she was going to be there for me. But then another big hurdle came. She ended up taking me to another orphanage. And I'm like, what is going on? Now, so I'm saying to myself, maybe she doesn't have anything to take care of me with, like nothing. And so then when she left me at another orphanage, the reason is because I didn't know how to walk.
Oh,
And so that was the biggest reason why she dropped me off at another orphanage, because she couldn't help me at all. She had no resources, no money. Like I say, she was an orphan, like we're sisters, right? And so she took me to another orphanage, and I was just begging her. I said, I don't want to go. You know how silly it is for me as a little girl. I didn't want to walk because I didn't want to separate from my sister. But she knew that she couldn't help me, so she had to drop me off somewhere. And she ended up lying to me and saying, I have to go to the bathroom, and so I'll be
no.
right back.
Oh
And
no.
I'm like, well, we always go to the bathroom together because one, I couldn't walk, so she had to take me to the bathroom every time I had to go to the bathroom, right? And so then, therefore, why is it different this time? Why can I go when she goes, right? And she says, no, I can't. I'll be right back. I promise. We pinky promise. And I finally ended up letting her go after like an hour of separations, like not wanting to let her go. And I did trust her. Finally, it's okay. You're going to come back for me. You could go to the bathroom. She never came back. So here I was in an emptiness of like another abandonment. Not, she, only person that I had a hope for, I didn't trust her either. So my world came apart at that moment. I just really hated life. I really hated everybody. that people that I haven't even met because I have lost trust. So my life began not talking to anybody, not smiling as I was growing up in the orphanage, but I did learn to walk there. It was a rehab center, and there was a long hallways with the rails, and I just, they showed me what to do to get up and sit up and down, and then take a step. And so it took me 2 years to learn to walk. Well, at that orphanage, all the kids were 100% of the kids were handicapped. So it was like a rehab center. But 20% of the kids didn't have any family. They were orphans. So that's where I belong. Handicapped and as an orphan.
Yeah.
And then so then I was adopted at age 14 by an American family. And they did all kinds of surgeries on my legs. And also, they ended up doing a surgery on my lip. I found out my second orphanage that I had a hair lip. I was born with a hair lip. Nobody told me. When kids were bullying me, calling me names, that's when I found out that there was something wrong with my lip.
Okay, when you say
And
hair
so,
lip, is that the same thing as like a cleft lip or something
yeah,
similar?
clip lip. Yes, hair
Okay,
lip,
okay.
clip lip. Yeah. But it wasn't really, it was I guess it wasn't severe, but it was bad enough that it needed a surgery.
I see. Hmm.
And so when I was adopted, so my family did all kinds of surgeries on me, my legs and my lip and everything. Of course, I never looked in the mirror until I came to America because there was no reason for me to look in the mirror because I thought I was just this awful person. Nobody wanted me. I was the ugliest person in the world and everything else. We all have this negative mindset, right? So after coming to America, studied really hard, ended up getting a scholarship, and then took a short turn to become a medical assistant. I really wanted to be a medical assistant because I wanted to work with patients and a doctor in a doctor's office setting instead of at the hospital. So I landed up my dream job, and I loved it. Like I did that for 33 years. And of course, during that time, I had a lot of struggles. I found myself, I was a single mother too, after being married for 14 years and got divorced and was a single mother for 14 years. And I was struggling financially, living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to pay bills. I was embarrassed at times where I get noticed on my front door knob and saying, we're going to shut off your utilities because, you didn't pay your, utility bills. And so I really was struggling. And so money issue started when I was very, very young, as I mentioned earlier. And here I am, found myself living a life and ended up in a dream job. Why am I struggling? Still working 40 hours a week. I shouldn't be struggling. It's not like I wanted to live a lavish, life. It's just I wanted to live basic necessity, just your American, middle class American people, nothing more than that, just paying bills and take care of my kids. I have, 4 kids now, but at the time I had 3 kids and trying to raise kids as a single mother. It was very, very difficult. And so when I thought to myself, as I was observing some of my patients, what they were going through as they were getting close to retirement themselves, I noticed something very profound. That was that even after they worked for 30, 40 years and they can afford to retire. And so a lot of my patients, when they were ready to retire from one job, they would end up getting another job and they started from the bottom of the ladder. So here, some of my patients, they were CEOs for the company for 30, 40 years. And then when they were ready to retire from the first job because of due to age or whatever, how many years that they'd worked, and then they would retire and then they would get another job because they didn't have enough money to stay retired. And also they were starting from the bottom. And I thought to myself, you might as well just stay at the same job, stay at the highest level instead of starting at the bottom and work your way up when you're in your 60s and 70s. It just didn't make sense. And some of my patients, when they retired, they were bored because they didn't have any money to travel. So then some of them ended up going back to work. So I was just learning all these valuable lessons from my patients as a, working with the doctors and patients as a certified medical assistant. So I thought to myself, I don't want to be retired and become one of those, retired people that I was witnessing. And I thought if I retire, I wanted to have enough money to travel and really enjoy, my retirement, not just staying home. Because when I was working, since I was struggling paycheck to paycheck, during my vacations, I couldn't go anywhere. So for activities for me and my kids, we would just go on a picnics and things like that. So I wanted to change my life and I really wanted to make enough money to really taste fine things in life and live somewhat luxury life. And that means I had to quit my dream job.
Oh,
So
okay.
I ended up retiring early, much earlier than I ever dreamed of. And how I became of being retired early was I had to have my biggest why. Why do I want to retire from my dream job? I love it. Why? Okay. And I kind of went through why that is because I was living paycheck to paycheck and I wanted to live life that I don't have to worry about money. I don't have to worry about, next paycheck before I could buy certain things or before I could pay my bills. And so I set myself this unexpected, unbelievable mindset of like really lifting my mindset to like, okay, I'm going to do this because if I stay at my dream job, I won't be able to stay retired like those people that I've seen. I won't be able to have enough money. I will continue to stay broke.
Right. So explain to me the you're saying there's an awareness that was formed uh,
Hmm.
as you were observing the situations with a myriad of patients over the years, and then ultimately this is leading you into you need to make a lifestyle change, and that's not staying at your job that you love because you're not making
Right,
enough money and it's not going to support you. So
right.
what then did you do, or how did you come to that awareness and then create a system to quit your job and then find financial liberation to achieve the goals that you
Yeah,
really wanted for yourself?
sure, exactly. And so then I thought, with that mindset, I thought I have to retire. And therefore, you know how we have to look for another job before we quit our current job to make more money?
Sure,
So
of
it
course.
was, yeah, so same thing in that way. It's like I have to prepare myself to retire because I can't just not retire without any plans. And so I would start attending like seminars and things like that for real estate. I thought I was going to be a real estate investor because I heard that you can make lots of money. So I said, okay, I could do that. So I was educating myself. My husband and I, we would go to classes and attending seminars and things. And so in 2014, I was getting educated and I was telling my coworker, my doctor, and said, I'm going to retire. And he says, when? And I said, within a year. And he says, do you have any money? And I said, no. And I said, do you have any money saved up to retire? And I said, no. So, not having any money, I just took a big leap. Now, people that are around me, my family members, my friends, my coworkers, we were all pretty much in the same boat. We were living paycheck to paycheck. I didn't have any role model that I could see that made lots of money, that living comfortable life. But then I was look into the world where there's out there people out there saying making money, they're rich. And I told myself, like, why not me? Even though I may not have anybody within my circle, but there's some people out there that I hear about, that I heard about, like, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, and all these different, rich people. It's like, why not me? I could be, make enough money that I don't ever have to retire, without not having enough money and be able to travel and do whatever I want to do. So really setting our mind to say, there's a people out there, or if you know somebody, say, I could be just like them. Why
Right.
not me?
Right.
I'm not limited. And so when I was attending those seminars and things like that, and they introduced to us and say, when you become a real estate investor, you need to invest your money. You can't, you can make all the money you want, but you have to learn to invest so that your money could grow while you're sleeping. And so then they says, real estate is one of them, but there's another form of, investing your money is option trading. And I said, what is that? I have never heard about option trading before. And it's been around for like 50 years, but nobody talks about it. They all talk about buying and selling stocks, but nobody ever talks about option trading. So I was very, very curious. And they explained to me and they says, okay, but it's going to cost you to learn this option trading. Nothing is free in life, right? Everything costs. And so I said, okay. But the most scary part was that I have to learn to use a computer. And that was my biggest challenge and biggest hurdle that I had to overcome. And I thought, I don't want to do that. I hate computers. I'm not a tech savvy. And so I just kind of put that back on my burner and said, no, I don't want to learn. I'll just stick with my real estate investors. And so I did retire within a year, exactly 2015 in December, within a year that I was talking about. So it's a very important, once we set a goal, once we talk about what we want to do, you got to have a time. You got to have like a time set when you want to do it. And you have to take actions actually doing that, right? So I did that and I was
Mm-hmm.
able to accomplish that. So then, and I was, going to auctions and I was looking into different properties and things like that. And I thought, no, this is not going to work for me because I wanted to stay home after all when I retire. I don't want to continue to work outside of the home. So it did not meet my wants and goals after
Mm.
retire. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to have to just, bite my tongue and just going to have to learn this option trading. And so I took on this option trading and I took classes and I studied really hard, like not knowing what kind of results that I'm going to get. And everybody else that close around me, my kids, my friends, my coworkers, they were all worried. They're like, what are you going to do? It's like, you have never done that before. Like, only thing, you're so good at medical assistant, and everything. I said, I know. But I had to weed those noises out. I cannot dwell on those people that are worrying about me, right? And I just said, I said to myself, I don't care what it takes. I'm just going to do it. But I did not know anybody. I never heard about option trading. I never knew anybody that did option trading and succeeded. I have never heard about it because I wasn't looking into it at all. I wasn't looking online or anything. And so, but when I retired in December 2015, starting January 2016, I decided I'm going to study this. And I took it on as like a new hobby because everyone retires. We all want a new hobby. It's a fun hobby. But I thought, a lot of people spend money on their hobbies. And I thought, I'm going to do something to make me money. And I'm going to take on a new hobby that makes me money. So I was just thinking just the opposite of what other people are doing. So that's exactly what I did. I was very, very intrigued by option trading. And I thought it's a new hobby, something new skill, something I was very, very against because I hate computers.
Mm.
But I just took on all these challenges and I was willing to face the obstacles and all these things that I had to learn. I didn't care
Yep.
because I just wanted to do something. And so I studied and I treated this learning curve as like my new job. And so I just got out of job working 9 to 5 for 33 years. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought to myself, why not learn this and treat it like a new job? Like,
Yeah, that's
training.
brilliant. Yeah, that's brilliant. If you
Yeah.
had all the time in the world, that is your new job. So just kind of
Yeah.
moving the story along, because I'm really curious as you have studied, you've explored, you shifted your mindset, you took
Hmm.
action once you created that date to retire. What's the next big like pin moment in the story where success started to come?
Yeah. So basically, so I had to practice with the virtual account and, instead of using real money, and I was noticing the results with my virtual account. So I thought, okay, I'm making the results and I'm making good money, even though it was a virtual money. And so then I thought, okay, I'm going to have to start doing this with the real money. But remember, I retired young enough that I could not touch my 401k or my pension plan from my job for 33 years. And so I ended up 2006, let's say 2017, because I studied for the whole year in 2016. So 2017 came, I decided to take it with the real money and doing exactly what I was doing with the virtual money. But the difference is I set a goal. And I said, okay, if I want to make so much money per year, how much do I have to make up per month? And how much do I have to make up per week and
Sure.
per day? So I
Sure.
broke down to small bite sizes, right? And I thought if I can make it anywhere between 60 to 90,000, I'll be so happy. And I don't have to work for anybody, and it'll be my own term and my own house and my own time. And I would just be like, it would be like true dream come true for me, right? And so when I set a goal, and my first year, I, six times my income, I ended up making $178,000 my first year. And I thought, I couldn't believe this. Not only I exceeded my goal, but then I like, wow, but I have to have a plan. We have to break it down to small bite sizes. I can't say to myself like, oh, I'm going to make $100,000 if I didn't have any plans. Then if I didn't reach it, I would know what steps I took it,
Sure.
right?
True. So you had to reverse engineer all the steps that you took.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so you
Hmm.
have to have a plan. You have to have a bite size and how to get there. And then I start teaching people. And within that couple of years, I took my husband's retirement money out of 164,000. I turned that into $604,000, over half million in 11 months, and then I was able to become a millionaire. And I just thought, this is just unbelievable. I would have never, ever thought to myself like I would be a millionaire of doing anything, period, you know? But I was just able to just really take this massive action with a massive, like a leaping my mindset and saying, why not me? Who's stopping me? Only
Yeah.
me,
Sure. Well, I'm curious
right?
for the listeners who might be in a similar position or want to be elevated in their financial success, but may have negative fear or doubt. What are what do you think some qualities and characteristics about you that allowed you to build that resiliency, that sense of confidence in self, and really taking a risk by leaving what you knew and what was familiar? What can they gather from you, and what can they build in hearing from your experience, and what really fortified you in making those decisions to place a bet on yourself?
Sure. Basically, you have to have this mindset like you cannot listen to other people that is close to you because they're worried, they're expressing their concerns, and a lot of times they're negative, and it gives you more worries when they're worrying about you, right? And so you can say, so you have to determine like, okay, what kind of life do you really want? So the determination for me to retire early was like, I'm sick and tired of this life, even though it was my dream job, but I was sick and tired of living just routine, just same
Sure.
old life.
Yeah.
Like I am not going to do this another day. Right. And so then, therefore, if you're sick and tired of living your life now and you want to change, you have to shift your mindset first, realizing that only you could bring that new mindset to yourself. You cannot hear somebody else's
Yeah.
motivational speeches. Like, if you hear what I'm saying, even though I have succeeded, you can't say, okay, that was a great podcast. I heard good things from, like this podcast from Sun Yong, she succeeded. But it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what worked for me is not going to work for you. But when you shift your mindset and say, you know what, why not me? And nobody could stop me but me. So if you keep telling yourself like, no, I can't, no, I don't know anybody that has done this, right? And I don't know anybody and I got to do study first. No, you can't do that. You have to say, I'm sick and tired of this lifestyle that I'm living, paycheck to paycheck, struggling to pay bills. I want to do something different. So that means your mindset have to shift first. And then you
Yes.
have to take actions no matter what it is. So you can't say, I got to see the results first, right? I
Yeah.
got to have the results first before I take actions. You can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. So
So,
many of us really want to taste the lemonade before we even squeeze the lemons.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And sometimes we think that we have to have everything, in place before. Like we have to say, oh, I'm going to do it after I retire, I swear. Right. And,
Yeah.
and then after you retire, you get comfortable. And
Hmm.
one day turns into 1 week, and 1 week turns into a month, to a year, 10 years, 20 years go by.
Yeah.
And so when we tell ourselves, like, someday I will do it, oh, someday I will be definitely doing that. Well, that thing, whatever you want, that moment turns into 20, 30 years later. For some people, they have never accomplished it.
Yeah. So take immediate action is what I'm hearing
You
from.
do,
Yeah.
very. And
Yeah.
so
In
daily,
that immediate, in that spark, that's like where if you don't act on the initial spark, there's no like flame that can be ignited, right? So it goes that way.
yeah, think about it. When you listen to this podcast, and you have a lot of great podcasts for your audience to hear. So when they hear your podcast through yourself, by you or by your guests that you have, right? And they hear it and they get so motivated, right? And then they go home, or when they're done finishing, listening to the podcast, what do they face? Same situations, same job, same home, same circumstances. Everything is same,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
what do you have to do? You got to do something very, very different. You got to do something that what way different than opposite of what you've been used to doing.
Yeah.
Because
So
otherwise you're going to get the same results.
absolutely, absolutely. And one thing that really, everything you're saying really lands for me, um, especially in the vein of changing up the normalcy, like breaking the patterns of your lifestyle. Because if you can break up the patterns of your day to day, that can then fragment the brain and the neural pathways that have been established, so you can start to look out and around and see alternative ways of existing. And I'm
Hmm.
curious, what financial myths or cultural messages do you believe we as women must dismantle in order to truly become empowered, no matter what age we are?
Yeah. So we have to see ourselves like as equal as men, because a lot of times, in the world says, man is the bread, winner, or man that brings all the income, and obviously our lifestyle has changed. And so, ladies make more or much or more than a lot of the men do nowadays in their career, right? And we have to have this mindset shift along with how the life is going, is that we are equal, or we can be better than men when it comes to making money. Because a lot of times, both people work in the household anymore. Those days where wives stay home and men provide food, and money for groceries and bills and things like those days are way gone, many,
Yeah,
many years ago. And so therefore, when how we're living our life, we have to change our mindset too,
yeah,
and just say, what, we're powerful. we
hmm,
are we are capable. And and our mind is different than men. And I know that we're more detailed,
mm,
therefore we can make more money than men, because how we think, how we do things. Think about it, we're way more focused and way detailed. Like I said, we have women have a spaghetti brain. We could do a lot of things, we could do multitask. And man has a like a waffle brain. They can only focus on one square at a time.
yeah,
That's what I like. I always talk about that with my husband.
yeah.
And so
Oh,
when you think about it that way, it's like, really, we can multitask. We could do a
yeah,
lot of things.
hmm,
Therefore, why not? We can make as much, money as men do,
yes,
or
absolutely.
more.
Yeah, well, I'm so curious about your system, but before we get
Yeah.
into how unique it is and how it differs from other approaches, I would love for you to just give a simple definition of what options trading is for those who are not
Yeah.
aware.
Sure. So options trading it's been around for about 50 years, for many, many, many years, but nobody talks about it. Everybody talks about stocks, buying stocks and selling stocks. Well, the option trading is something that you make money in the stock market, just like you're buying and selling stocks. And you sell and you buy stocks as well, but it is so much cheaper to get into a stock market with the option trading. So in other words, like someone that who has like only $500 with the option trading, you could increase that $500 to $9,000 in 3.5 months. Not 3.5 years, but 3.5 months. It's a specific strategy that you buy and sell like a certain companies, right? So any company that the stocks are available, Boeing, Tesla, Wayfair, just any companies, like any companies that has a stocks, you could just get into option trading, and it has expiry dates. Where stocks, it doesn't have a stock expiry dates. You could buy and sell anytime you want. Usually stocks, you buy stocks at a low price and then you sell it at high to make money. Well, you could do that with the options, but then you could also make money when the market is going down as well as when market is going up. It's a beautiful thing because it's a variety of strategies with option trading that you could hold it for one day or 1 week or 1 year. It's up to you. You have a lot of different flexibility, and yet you can make money so much quicker
I
than
see.
to get into an option,
And what's the
stocks.
difference between an option and a stock?
So option is like a stock options. So basically, stock is like you buy like a calls and puts. So basically, yeah. So there's like they're like you buy to make money, and you could also sell to make money. Where stocks, you could only buy and then hoping the market would go up to make money.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. I think there's still some confusion as far as like what an option actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So the option is, I can't explain it because when I usually teach to people, like I show it on the computer,
sure.
because when you show it on the like a platform, it's just so much easier and they could see the huge difference. So option is basically you can make money with the stock market. So you know how like people are buying and selling stocks with the
Sure.
company, and so with the options, you also get into a stock market, but you choose like a stock price, where stocks you just like, let's say for example, like let's say Apple stock costs, I'm going to just look at it really quick here.
Sure.
Let's say Apple stock cost, if you wanted to buy Apple, let me go in here really quick here. Apple. So if you wanted to buy an Apple stocks, so if you buy one stock in an Apple, it's going to cost you. Right now it's like $200.32 per share on Apple stock. Okay, so let's say we want to buy a Apple stock, one share. Okay, then it costs me. Let me see. It's going to cost me. Let me go in here. Just kind of move my computer a little bit. Okay, say $200.40. It's a live market, is live right now, so price is changing all the time. Okay, so I can't do that. So it's gonna cost you like $20,000 to
Mm-hmm.
buy one stocks,
I
right?
see. Mm-hmm.
But if you were to get into a stock market with the option trading, and if you were to buy like a one share, which is a one quantity, so there's a one share for the stocks and there's a one quantity for option trading. Okay, and it's going to cost you maybe like $2,000 instead of 20,000. That's the difference in a price,
Got it.
options versus stocks. So it's so much cheap, right? And the people that doesn't have a lot of money could get into a stock market and take advantage of making money, like if someone had a lot of money buying a stocks.
Sure, that makes
So
sense.
that's a beautiful thing.
And as far as risk associated with this type of trading, I would imagine due to the options being able to expire,
Hmm.
that would be kind of the risk, right? So that's why
Yeah.
there's trainings that need to be undertaken and methodologies and approaches and systems in place so that a person is aware of how to actually navigate this way of trading and investing.
Yes, yes, that is true. But also, there's a specific training that you got to take to really, because when you're working with money, you don't want to lose any money, right? And everybody wants to make money. That's the whole point of, getting into a stock market. And people buy stocks and sell stocks. But the thing is like even with the buying a stock, for example, like a lot of people are aware of, that's a very easy to do, is that when market is going down, people get so frustrated and they ended up selling off and they lose a tons of money.
Yeah.
So same thing with the options. Like you really have to be aware, have this mindset of like, you have to go through the process.
Yes.
So
So I'm
my
curious. Yeah. Oh, great. Perfect. You're going exactly where I wanted to
yeah.
go.
So my
It's talking
specific
about your.
strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah, my specific strategy is called unique miracle system because, number one, I'm very unique because, I was born with a handicap. I did that. I was unique at one point in my life, but then unique miracle is a true miracle. And for how I became a millionaire with the option trading is a unique miracle, really, because I have never even thought about even learning such a strategy, and being in the space and becoming a millionaire, because I have never even dreamed of doing option trading and becoming a millionaire in my life, period. And so unique miracle system is something that I created by studying whole year, taking it on as like my hobby. And then it was very intriguing, and I thought, if I can make 50,000 a day, that is something that I have never done with my real job. And so I was so really intrigued to study and come up with a very simple strategy that anybody could learn. I even taught my kids. And so even like my high school, teenage boy, he took $5,000 and turned that into 11,000 in 2.5 weeks, not 2.5 years, but 2.5 weeks. And so strategies, that there's all kinds of strategies that people teach with option trading, but mine is just so simple because I don't like, you know, spending a lot of time. I want to make money. If I'm going to spend a lot of time, I'd rather spend that time to be money maker, not studying all this beautiful charts and things like that. You have to know the few basic things, and if you know that, then you could really, like, the strategies are, like I said, someone who has a 300 or $500, they could turn that into anywhere between two to three, four, five, six, seven, $8,000, less than 6 months. What kind of money, what kind of interest can you get that from your own bank or investment without having like $250,000 to start with?
Exactly. So I'm curious, what kinds of transformations have you seen in the lives of those you've taught outside? I guess you mentioned your teenager.
So I have other clients that I have taught. I have a clients that has a master's degree, PhD degrees, and they were making 100,000 a year just at their job. But we all need to find a ways to invest our money, not just making money, but you also need to invest money. That's how you make a lot of money. And so when they learned my strategies, they were able to, take their level and they were able to retire early. I have people that come to me and saying they've been bricklayers for 20 years and they have nothing to show for. And so, they says, I want something that they could do at home on their own term, or somebody who wants to retire earlier than they ever dreamed of. And so they could do this part-time. And then when they could see for themselves that they could make more money than their regular job, and they ended up retiring much earlier than they ever dreamed of. And so it's just single mothers, that need extra income. Where I was a single mother, for 14 years, and I was working 3, 4 jobs. And if I would have had this and doing this part time at home and stay home with my kids, I would have loved it.
Sure. Sure.
So it's just really changed.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I'm curious with your clients, or students, how do
Mhm.
you balance the technical aspects of teaching finance with the emotional stories that your clients potentially bring to the table?
Well, it's with anything. Everything's a risk in life, right? To go to school, get a degree, it's a risk. It's not guaranteed that you're going to make as much money as you thought you're going to make with a degree. And if you start a new business, you know, it's not guaranteed that your business is going to go and you're going to love what you're doing. And so everybody has this mindset of like, okay, I'm very scared. Yeah, of course you should be scared. But then you should also have a confidence and say, you know what, there's a people out there making money. Like I could do that too.
Sure.
Why not me? And
Sure.
so you have to really take a risk and just say, okay, if you have a $2,000, for example, okay, you could spend it and it's gone once it's spent. But you could take $2,000 and you could just learn the strategies and you could turn that 2,000 into like even 10,000 in 6 months.
Beautiful.
Like,
Amazing. Yeah.
yeah,
And what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone who feels like they're starting too late?
it's never too late. I was 54 and a half when I retired. And I didn't, at my age, I thought, I don't want to learn new skills. I don't feel comfortable using computers. And so, really, when you think about it, is never too late, never ever. But it will be too late if you think of it. If you tell yourself that you're too late, then you are. But
Mm,
when you tell yourself it's never too late, it's never too late. It's
yeah.
best time to start is now.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Well, if you could give a younger Sun Yong some words of wisdom, to what age would you travel back to and what would you say?
Boy, when I would be in my 20s, and I would tell myself, start finding a ways to invest my money.
Mm,
Find the strategies to make your money go further rather than looking for a better paying job. Because it's not about making more money makes you rich and be wealthy. It's just what you do with what you make.
mm,
Because
magnificent.
I've worked with the doctors where they were making tons of money, but they were struggling. They were still living paycheck to paycheck. I've seen it with my own eyes.
Sure. Yeah. Wow, such amazing wisdom, and I'm so appreciative of you for coming on the show. And I'd just like to open up the floor if there's anything that you would like to leave us with before we close out this beautiful episode.
Sure. So I think on daily basis, it's really important to have a specific routine in your life to live a better life and to have a fulfilling life. And that is like the attitude. Everybody talks about attitude, but the attitude that I live with myself every single day is how grateful I am. But I take it to the next level. So I'm not just grateful for the big things, but I'm actually, you know, being grateful for like little things, every little things that took me to where I am now. And so when we live a life, having with a great attitude is like how we speak to. So in other words, like I'm a mother and I'm a grandmother. And so when I shifted this mindset of like when I was taking care of my kids, when I was taking my kids to like friend's house, when they asked me, I said, Mom, can you take me to my friend's house? And I would say, sure. And we have this attitude of like, you know what? I have to do it. A lot of us think it's like, I have to do it, right? Because they can't drive. But the most important thing is like, I get to do it and I want to do it. So everything there's 100%. So 80% of my attitude is saying, I want to do it. I have an opportunity to take him to, friend's house to spend time with his friends and I get to. And 20%, I have to because he cannot drive. And so everything we do in life, we have this mindset of like 80% that we have an opportunity to. we get to do it and we want to do it instead of saying, oh, do I have to? Because when we say to ourselves, like, do we have to? And it becomes a chore, then you just you're missing the best part in life.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that, touching on the privilege of life, the privilege of the choices we've made and have led us to the circumstances that we are in. And then also the gratitude and appreciation that has led us to the path that we're on right now. That really
Yes.
lands for me. So thank you for sharing. Where can everyone find you and ways to work with you?
Well, they could find me on a TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I do have a YouTube channel about my option trading. And
Hmm.
so they could, subscribe. It's free and watch my videos on how to do option trading for free there. Um, yeah. And then I have a website, uh, set goals, dream big and setgoals.com. And yeah, and then I have a classes that you could sign up. If you're on a waiting list, it won't be too long, but just have to contact me directly through email saying that you're interested. But yes, and with your audience, I would give certainly a huge, huge discount, probably like 70% discount to learn because they have to have money to invest, but then they also is a fee to learn because we could be learning for lifetime, but we need to start making money, not learning for the rest of our life, right? So that's very
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much again, Sun Yong, for being here. And for our wonderful listeners, thank you for tuning in. As always, I invite you to share this episode with anyone in your life who you believe it would impact in such a positive way. And as always, requesting that if you enjoy the show, please leave a review. It takes you less than 30 seconds, but really aids in the show growing in the charts so that others can find it and really soak up the amazing information, nutrients, inspiration that comes from all of the amazing guests that I have the honor of sharing with you all. Until next time, love you. See you.